does not have a direct.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the STEM Files. We are the voice of STEM talent and Black culture, where we highlight the best and brightest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics in the Black and Brown communities. Tonight's episode, we're going to be talking with Keyah Brown. She's a biotechnology student at Morehouse School of Medicine. She's going to be talking to us about her brand, iHeart Biotech, where she uses her brand to teach Black women about science. So definitely tap in, check us out for more after this. All right. Thank you again, family, for coming back. If it's Thursday, you know it's STEM Files Day. We're going to be talking about science, talking about Black people in science.
Come on.
So I'm glad you all are with us this evening. My name is Tariq Muhammad, aka Tariq Cardiac. I'm a biomedical research scientist with a background in cardiovascular pathobiology, which is the study of how diseases form in the heart and blood vessels. I'm joined by my much better half in business and in brotherhood, Jabril Muhammad.
Oh, you started off the show capping, but that's okay. All praise to Allah.
No cap.
Peace, love, and hair grease, everyone. It's your brother and servant, Jabril Muhammad, aka Jabrillion Engineer. I am a civilian mechanical engineer focusing on naval ship fluid systems with a background in material science engineering. That is the study of the various material classes and how their crystalline and non-crystalline structures impact their various applications in a number of arenas. I'm excited. I'm super excited for who we have on today, ready to get into this dynamic program. Let's get it.
Absolutely. And tonight's episode is very special. Well, all of the episodes are special, but for me personally, someone who is experienced in the field that we're going to be talking about tonight, I'm thoroughly excited to be having our amazing guest on, Keyah Brown. She's a biotechnology student at the Morehouse School of Medicine. She's pursuing her master's degree, correct?
Yes, sir. I'm doing
awesome. So, Ms. Brown, can you please introduce yourself to the public? Tell us about yourself, what you're currently doing, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So first off, I just want to say thank you both kings, brothers, gentlemen, pillars in our community for having me on your podcast today. I'm very, very excited to talk with you both and to talk with the community in general about STEM and specifically science and technology side of STEM. So I'm currently earning my master's of science in biotechnology from Morehouse School of Medicine. I'm an undergraduate student from Tuskegee University.
Tuskegee.
Hey, let's go.
A lot of my roots stemmed from there, and I really look up to Dr. George Washington Carver, who was of his time a biotechnologist.
Yes.
A little bit of that. From Sacramento, born and raised. I just recently moved back to Sacramento in August because I really want to stay focused in my grad program, which is online. It's 100% online. It's also the #1 program in the country for online biotechnology, Morehouse School of Medicine, HBC. So with me being in a program like this, and I'll explain to you guys kind of my journey in undergrad and my journey in grad school. I've made excellence the mission, like truly just striving for excellence. And while I'm at this #1 program in the country for biotechnology online, it's not enough that I just got in. I really want to master it. I really want to be strong in my studies. And coming back home I'll be 30 this year, 30 years old. And
okay.
Different, but I appreciate it. So I'm just in this space of gratitude ultimately. And being in this space has just allowed me to create more. So currently living in Sacramento, I work for an organization called UCAN, United College Action Network. It's a Black-owned organization that's been around since 1988, sending students to Black colleges. And that's something that's really big here in the West Coast because we don't have HBCUs in the West Coast. In fact, my school, my undergrad, Tuskegee, was founded July 4th, 1881. California was still very much a new area, So during that time, Black people were still here and were still, in the United States and wanting to educate themselves. And I guess, that's the reason why there are none here really on the West Coast, because this is just such a newer part of the United States. And with it still being new and really just new in terms of advancement and specifically technology, it's important to me to kind of be home right now, but to also push HBCUs and to continue to push education. Growing up in Sacramento was not it for me. And I love right now that I'm with UCAN. We go into the school districts. I'm in 6 different schools throughout the month, and I work with seniors, juniors primarily, but freshmen and sophomores, and just push education, and specifically education at our schools, at HBCUs, and specifically STEM as well. I push that because that's something that we're good at. And growing up out here in California, you never know that you could grow up to really be a scientist, or that you could, grow up to become an engineer or become an inventor or whatever it is that we're not told that we could become out here in the far West.
That's right. That's right.
I'm really enjoying being back home. And since being back home, I've created a business called iHeart Biotech. And iHeart Biotech is like my growing baby, I guess you could say. I'm growing it while I'm in grad school. I'll finish up my program in December. And the program, or not the program, but iHeart Biotech aims to educate women and children in my community, specifically Black girls, about science and technology. Just encourage them to think bigger and to just to like it, to touch it, to get involved with it, to get hands-on, to ask questions, to decide if they don't like it, and just to have more access and opportunity to science and technology and engineering and math.
Absolutely. That's dope. That's dope, sis. Listen, family, before we go any further, I will be remiss if I didn't say we are Jabrilian Engineering Cardiac. Follow us, family, on our social media, Instagram and Twitter at the STEM Files. Also, the STEM Files, quote, the STEM Files on Facebook and YouTube. Make sure, for those enjoying this content, make sure you are commenting your questions, commenting how much you're enjoying, you are liking, you are sharing with everybody you know under the sun, because we do our best to deliver high quality STEM content and connect you with those who understand that not only are we Black in STEM, but Black is and has always been STEM. Praise be to Allah. As we move forward, one of the things that we love to do here is, yes, we engage, yes, we have this general conversation, but we want to get to the nitty gritty to make sure that people understand exactly what we're talking about. So can you unpack for us, what is biotechnology? Also, what is bioinformatics? And then more specifically, what are some current innovations being conducted in those respective areas?
Absolutely. So biotechnology, I get that question a lot. What is biotechnology? Especially with me going to Morehouse School of Medicine. People are like, oh, you're in medical school, so you're going to be a doctor. And I'm like, eventually I'd like to move on and get a higher degree, but not necessarily a medical doctor. That's not what I'm doing at all right now, actually. So biotechnology is, I don't want to say it's new, but it's a growing sector in the heavy science field, that has combined natural materials that we already have, such as maybe DNA, genetic material, or the use of plants, natural things that grow outside, or even the use of like water and what's in our water or what comes from our water, like algae, taking these natural resources, natural materials that already exist, and basically kind of going in and tweaking that natural genetic material, essentially to be, I don't want to say better, but to work more efficiently.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
that can look different in different ways, such as my mom literally was just asking me this a few minutes ago. She was like, everybody asks, so what is, I don't know what it is. And I am in my second term right now. I'm starting my second term of my first semester. We are learning about specifically how to alter different, I guess, materials genetically,
Okay.
and also how to combine that with data as far as
Gotcha.
bioinformatics.
Okay.
Morehouse School of Medicine, they created I'll just give a background. They created a biotechnology and bioinformatics program because we are Black in that community. Black people, we make up, I don't remember the exact percentage, I should. But
All good. Take your time, Queen. You got
I
it.
don't want to give a false number because data is something that's important that we look at, when it just comes to numbers in general and information. But something that I've just gained since being in the program that was created was the importance of who analyzes data and the biases that come along with that, or that could come along with that. So if you kind of look at the bioinformatics or biotechnology world, the world of science in general, Black people make up a very small percentage, an extremely small percentage. The majority of people who are in science do not look like me. And just growing up here in the United States, the majority of people who have not looked like me have not necessarily had my best interest as a Black woman. So when it comes to looking at data and collecting information, how do I know that information that's collected is accurate or isn't biased or isn't faulty because somebody is biased or is racist?
That's right. That's right.
So I really enjoy, at least we learn a little bit of bioinformatics on the biotech side, but what I've gained so far, just in general, between the two, is that it's important for us as Black people to be in there. Because we need to be able to go in and see what the numbers look like, to be able to read, to comprehend, to chew, and then to move forward and make critical decisions by thinking critically, essentially.
Okay.
Sure. And I'm glad you brought up, besides some people in our field may not have our best interests at heart. I wanted to ask you, just from biotechnology alone, how have you seen biotechnology affect the Black community directly? What are some things you notice that particular area of science falls under in terms of any struggles that we as a people go through, things that you've seen in your own personal community, your family life, or anything of that nature?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Something that and we were just actually talking about this last week, I like to ask my coworkers, I work in an all Black environment, I like being around my people.
That's right.
I asked them specifically, how has biotechnology affected you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's one way how biotechnology has affected you? So I got back different responses, and it was actually one of our questions, but specifically these are responses from our people. So one response was about vaccines, whether or not it's a COVID vaccine or a vaccine for whatever it is. If there are people who put their trust into this medical, technologically created thing that can help them feel better, then that is a plus. Now, I don't know, anything further than that, going a little bit more deeper politically, that's not my avenue.
Oh yeah, that's totally up to you.
That's right. Another thing would be specifically talking with one of my coworkers is diagnosis and misdiagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to have certain type of machines that are created. That's one thing that I'll be learning about later on this year. Is making medical devices and then also making medicines. But medical devices that fall underneath biotechnology could be, I do not remember the specific name, but and I apologize about that.
You got it.
But
You got it.
there's
Doing.
a device
You're
that's
doing
been
a great job
created.
so far.
Oh, thank you. There's a device that's been created that is allowed for the detection of breast cancer to be detected quicker. And in it being detected quicker means that you could get treatment quicker. If you get treatment quicker, that means it doesn't necessarily spread. My grandmother, she passed of breast cancer in 1994 in Brooklyn, New York. And at
Mm.
that time, I'm sure it was a whole different, just a whole different world as far as being a Black woman in general.
Right.
But especially like just in relation to the healthcare industry. The healthcare industry
No, for
was
sure.
not nearly as technologically savvy as it is now. And that's one way how I've seen it be an improvement in my community. I would also say just the development of certain drugs that have been created, drugs that have been able to reduce the likelihood of, or reduce the likelihood of passing on a particular, um, let's say like an inherited disease. So for instance, Black people, something that's really common in our community is like lupus, unfortunately, or sickle cell anemia. Something that people are able to do if they're interested and they're doing this in vitro fertilization. That's a form of biotechnology. Is to go ahead and look at your eggs and look at your cells and
Mm.
all of the genetic disorders that you may have that are just in your
Mm.
DNA. And we're in a world now where I can go ahead and clamp out this genetic disorder. I don't
Yep.
want that there.
Fuck it on up.
So, now we get passed down and that gets, but to me, that's interesting because it has to be replaced with something. When you take something out, it has to be replaced with something. So whatever it's replaced with might not necessarily be quote unquote natural from me. It doesn't mean it's not natural in general. But it's something that could help me maybe later on down the line, because what if I want a longer lineage? What if I'm
Right.
tired of my family having this disease? What if I want to have kids and I don't want them having this, or I don't, we live in
Right.
that day and age.
Right.
And it's just interesting to me because my last semester at Tuskegee University, I was taking this class called Genetics and Society.
Mm.
It was a hybrid class that the university's done with UCLA for the last over a decade. So this is literally January 2020, right before the pandemic kicks off. And we're learning about all type of things. We're learning about genes, we're learning about patents, we're learning about vaccines, we're learning about viruses. And interestingly enough, Tuskegee sends us to UCLA for about a week, where we get to go inside of the labs and sit with the other students in their discussion. We're all in one class, but now they actually kind of just put us together. And when we went in February, and this was right before the pandemic. They had me as a student leader, and many of the students had never flown outside of Alabama, or had never been to California. Well, I'm a Californian. I'm like, come on,
Right. Right.
California. And I remember getting on the plane. I fly back and forth a lot, and they had on these masks, and I was like, what y'all got masks on for? I know you guys haven't flown like that, maybe, but you don't need to have a mask. We're just going to Los Angeles.
Right.
They're like, no, there's this new virus out called COVID. This was before COVID, really. This was before COVID was COVID. And just interesting. But going back to say, it was interesting going to UCLA and just being up there and seeing what has been going on from a PWI perspective, a major PWI, UC. Boy, it's so interesting just to put a pause in that. I recruit students to HBCUs, and these students out here in California are so pushed heavily to CSUs, California State University schools or UC's University of California schools. I mean, it's thrown down their throats. So, you know, we're on this campus, right? This UC campus. And
Right.
it's, you know, so renowned and so respected. And we just learn different things, like the fact that crack was invented at UCLA and distributed, you know, in Los Angeles. And just a host of other things that when you look at biotechnology or when you look at science can be really evil.
Right.
So in biotechnology, there's a lot of different kind of worlds. You have medical biotechnology, you have industrial biotechnology, you have agricultural biotechnology,
right.
and then you have marine biotechnology. You also have different forms and little tinier like subsectors in biotechnology, like nanotechnology. One technology that sticks out to me is dark biotechnology. I like to associate bad things with dark, but whatever. Okay. But dark biotechnology, and that's like basically people using biotechnology for an evil type of way. You know? So it's just so interesting that we got sent to UCLA in the middle of learning about genes and patents and the way how you can alter, you know, genes, and going into these labs and seeing how things have been done over the years, and then moving right that next month into a world, you know, renowned pandemic, and the way how that was something that was created in a lab, and that was something that was altered, and that was something that was evil, that was passed out. And I hated that. I hated seeing that because it seems so surreal. Like we literally were just in this, you know, big old school in these labs talking about this a couple weeks ago, and now this is a full-blown world problem. And that was something. I'm about justice. That's one thing I'm about. So that was something that wanted me to launch into that stuff like that. It excited me to get into biotechnology, because as many bad people as there are who just have nothing to do better than be fruitful and be smart, there are people who have things to do that are good and positive and be smart. And I want to counteract and, you know, invite more people to get into science and to use our brains and to think deeper and think of ways how we can create things that can help us and advance us and become better and faster and smarter, if that's what we choose. You know, I don't want to necessarily have to have it be up to somebody's choice and someone making me do something. Or, yeah.
Got it. Okay. We're gonna do something real quick. So we have the Black Math Academy on with us now. He's a avid supporter of the STEM Files. He's been on the STEM Files as a guest. So what I'm going to do is I want you to kind of remind us briefly of what biotechnology is, and then he also asks, what's your own goal with biotechnology? What are you trying to do with it? So if you can kind of just go into biotech real quick again, and then go into that question.
For sure. So biotechnology is basically connecting natural materials, whether it's genetic material, material from plant life, which can be genetic material again, or taking industrial materials that are already created and using them for advancement, using them to make something better, to make something faster, to make something stronger. And I know that sounds really general, but it's extremely broad. And the four main categories of biotechnology would be medical biotechnology, using biotechnology to create like vaccines, to create drugs, to create medical devices, things like EKG machines, heart beaters, different ways, different technologies, just in general that you see in the medical field are biomedical technology. As well as agricultural biotechnology. That could be basically like altering a gene in your plant, maybe if you want a crop resistant plant, so that it doesn't, if you're in a drought, like here in California.
You want to affect that plant, right?
Right, you want to have that plant out here. And that might scare people because it's like, oh, it's been altered. But truth be told, a lot of our stuff has been altered for hundreds of years.
Right. So naturally and unnaturally.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
There's also marine
Mhm.
biology, and there's marine biotechnology and industrial biotechnology. An example of marine biotechnology would be like algae and using the like algae for biofuels, turning that into, I don't know that part specifically, so I don't want to get that right away.
Turning it into biodiesel eventually. Yeah.
Taking that and creating it. And then biotechnology has different sectors, such as using biotechnology for therapeutics, using biotechnology for like in vitro fertilization if you're interested in having a baby. Nanotechnology is extremely small particles in biotechnology, something that's very interesting to me, one of my favorite parts. And basically, like, let's say if you wanted to paint a house, right? And you wanted to have solar panels on your house, but let's say you don't like those big solar panels, creating little tiny panels that would basically go on your paint. And people have done this to where you paint the house and now your house is painted with solar technology on it. Basically creating natural, creating technology and implementing it in things that we naturally already do, and doing it wise too, because we still want to be eco-friendly and good to our earth. And specifically, what I want to do with biotechnology, and my interest first is in educating my community. Um, I'll be honest with y'all. I was driving. I went to FAMU to visit my homegirls last year, really like this time last year, and we drove from Atlanta to Tuskegee, and then from Tuskegee to Tallahassee. So then on the way back from Tallahassee to Tuskegee, I'm driving Tuskegee to Alabama to Atlanta on 85. And I have the window open, I have the moon, shining through. It was a full moon. I think it's a full moon tonight, actually, interestingly enough. And I was debating about whether or not to apply for this program. But I just heard something, literally my ancestors, and they were like, you have to apply, like you have to do it, you have to do it. Like, okay, I'll do it. So I'm like, okay, I'll apply for biotechnology, but what? Like, then what? What am I gonna do with this? What y'all want me to do with this degree? What does God want me to do with this degree? What does the ancestors want me to do with this degree? And to be honest with you, I'm still waiting on God to let me know. I know that I want to make a lot of money in the next couple of years because I'm tired of being in the tax bracket that I'm in. But I have been praying. I pray about it weekly, honestly, and ask God to send me ideas, send me people, send me things that He wants me to do. Because biotechnology is very new; it's not going anywhere. And the answer, I might not have the answer yet. I might be creating something.
Right.
But specifically, my interests, I'm a doula and a midwife assistant.
Wow, really?
That's
Okay,
dope.
that's funny. You got to watch one of our last episodes.
I saw her. I was like, okay, hold on. I have to go back and watch this in depth for real.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, look at that.
So, yes, and I did that while I was in Alabama, living in Tuskegee. Moved back to Tuskegee and started at Tuskegee in 2010. Got down there, enjoyed myself. Got a little bit unfocused and came back to Sacramento. Was in Sacramento. I got very involved in my community after living around a plethora of smart Black people, and I loved it. So it's out here, but I decided I really wanted to go back and finish where I started. And when I went back, I was a little bit older. I originally went to Tuskegee when I was 17. And I got back to Tuskegee at 25. And at this point, I just had a different type of mindset. One thing that had happened was Alabama had just passed a law to make midwifery legal, illegal for decades. And that's nuts because midwifery really started in Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi. When you think about a lot of birthing, and honestly, who's to say that it's illegal when the baby is coming, coming. But being down there, I just realized that I wanted to work with women and um, help women as far as like their pregnancies and just to feel safe. And I really would like to somehow connect biotechnology, and the sun's moving, just so you guys know. But
Got you.
I'd really like to connect biotechnology with my doula work. Um, and I'm still kind of just I'm still kind of just moving. I'm not moving too fast in it because, to be honest with you, biotechnology is something very new to me. This whole program is something that I'm just diving deep in. I've never done it before, but I love so far what I'm learning, and it was a little intimidating at first, but I love being in the program that I'm in. I'm in a cohort with about probably 20 people from across the country, mostly in Atlanta. We have a group text where we keep each other pretty active. We're all different ages. Some people are doctors that have decided to come back and obtain their degree. Some people are younger than me, straight out of college, just wanting to, keep the knowledge going. Some people are firefighters that wanted to come back and learn how they can use biotechnology in the firefighting industry. Just very interesting. But yeah, for me, I want to educate my people about it. So that's what iHeart Biotech is about. And just encourage them to think about science and technology, specifically Black women and Black girls. And I'd like to work for somebody's company starting this summer, hopefully, maybe in Boston.
You got this. Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. So we actually at the 30-minute mark of the show, and this is where we typically like to do a final call newspaper promo. So what I'm gonna do at this time, and then we're gonna get back into the questions from the audience, and I'm sure Jabril got some things just going in his mind right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play a video about what the final call is, and then we're gonna talk about this week's issue. Is that all right?
Yes, sir. Of course. It's all right with me.
All right, cool. Let's get into it.
Now you can get the same uncompromising truth you've come to expect from the Final Call newspaper on all your connected devices. Subscribe to the Final Call digital edition today. Go to subscribe.finalcalldigital.com.
All right, cool. And that's the Final Call newspaper. It is a Black-owned newspaper produced by the Nation of Islam, and it is distributed by members of the Nation of Islam or anybody who comes across the Final Call and wants to share with somebody they know.
That's right.
But this week's edition is very critical in the time we're living in. Bro, can you tell us what this week's edition is about and why it's important for not only actually today's show, but why is it important for Black people in general?
Absolutely. So family, again, this is the Final Call newspaper. It's the flagship newspaper for the Nation of Islam. It is a message dedicated to the resurrection of Black men and women in America and the world. This week's edition: hell erupts, desolation spreads as conflict in Ukraine grow, crisis in Europe mounts, and ultimatums fly between Russia and America and her allies. It says economic warfare, nuclear threats, anger, uncertainty, and fear spread. Where will it end? So we're talking about, if you have not been living under a rock, which most of us don't, we know that America is currently been sending funds over to the Ukraine in response to the war going on between Russia and the Ukraine. And there have been a lot of people, our people on social media, what have you, seeing some of the content being produced in regards to how our people have been treated over there in terms of trying to get out. So where do we fit in? Should we be up in arms? Should we be focused on what we have going on here? And I believe you can kind of attest to what me and Brother Tariq think we should be doing. But in addition to this main article, we have the centerfold article, which is the Swan Song Part 3. For those who have not watched or listened to and parsed the Honorable Minister Farrakhan's Savior's Day 2022 message, the Swan Song, please go to www.noi.org to tap in and listen to it. He went in for 5 hours, but it was 5 hours of just nonstop value and just like it, like you got to, I listen to it like an hour at a time just to take it all in. But family, please get your digital edition at finalcalldigital.com, finalcalldigital.com. Also, if you're in the Philadelphia or Richmond areas and want to get your physical edition as well, you can tap in with myself or Brother Tariq, and we'll make sure to get that to you. But we got to support Black here. That's what we do all the time. How are we going to say Black is STEM? And we're going to say we support Black, but not be found producing, spreading, and then purchasing Black-owned products and services. The Final Call newspaper, family.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, bro.
Yes,
so at this time, I want to go ahead and get into some questions from the audience. But Jabril, is there anything that you wanted to ask before we get into that?
I wanted to just add a few points, if I may, because so much has been said, and I've been doing my best to hang on to everything you've talked about. One of the things I wanted to talk about really is actually prayer and related to biotechnology. When you were talking about being spoken to by the ancestors, being spoken to by God, and you should go into biotechnology, you should pursue this. And you said you prayed. When we really think about it, well, first and foremost, in the Nation of Islam, we are taught and we understand that man is God. Not only that, but more specifically, the Black man is God. And when I sit down and I pray and I make salat and I commune with the Almighty or the Supreme Being, every organism, every object has between it and the next object atoms. And what we understand is when I focus on something, and if I'm focusing on a supreme being and then those atoms in between, literally I'm communicating through electrical impulses from one to the next. So now as a biological being to another biological being, I'm communicating through a biological circuit, thereby having my prayers answered. See, what we have to do is get out of, as a people, as a community, the spookiness that surrounds prayer, that surrounds religion, that surrounds our spiritual way of life. Because when we do that and we come into the understanding that, really true religion can be found in STEM and STEM can be found in true religion. And as we understand that, we can really move ourselves forward. So that's a brief kind of example of how biotechnology really relates to our spiritual development as individuals. And another thing I also wanted to highlight was when you were talking about the different examples of biotechnology. And one of my favorite, which has been taken up by several of our people and others, particularly in this pandemic, has been the use of proper supplementation. And one of the things that we have to understand is when it comes to supplementation, you have to understand it from everybody's levels that are needed are not the same, and what everybody needs is not the same. Also, the name of the game when it comes to supplementation is absorption. So no matter what you take, you want to absorb the majority of that to have it be moved throughout your body very seamlessly. So you have pills or tablets, you have powders, and you have liquids. And as you could probably guess, as you go from the more or the most solid state to the more liquid state, you're getting higher and higher absorption, thereby getting more of the nutritive value from said supplement. So the delivery system is a great example of biotechnology. And when you get to bioinformatics, you're starting to talk about, well, what does the data say about said vitamin, said mineral, said nutrient in response to this disease or this issue that I have? So now we're starting to see very real world how not only this is an innovative field that can, lend itself to us, creating a legacy for ourselves and our family, but we can really help to address some of the things and the issues that plague the Black community and really plague society as a whole. So I just wanted to say thank you, sis, for all that you shared. And as you walked us through your journey, I really got to see someone who's not only excited, but is driven by the purpose of helping, their people succeed. And we have some things for you on the product side when it comes to
Come on.
integrating what you want to do as a doula and midwife assistant with your biotechnology. So all I'm gonna say is, I'm gonna quote my dear brother Tariq: "Don't sleep on the Navy beam." That's all I'm gonna say. Don't sleep on the Navy beam.
That's all you
I'm
gotta
gonna leave
say.
it there. I'm gonna leave it
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that, bro. Thank you. And
Yes, sir.
Keyah, did you want to respond to that? Anything, your thoughts on what Jabril just said?
Absolutely. I just wanted to respond about the prayer in relation to biotechnology, and especially being a Tuskegee woman. That's what they call us.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. George Washington Carver was a professor at Tuskegee University. He taught there and died there and is buried on campus. While he was there, this lady in Tuskegee came to him with these bushes, these like thick bushes with these bulbs on the bottom and these long stems. So she takes them to him and she's like, I don't know what these are. I don't know what to do with these. What can you do with them? You're a scientist. And he's like, I don't know what these are. They're peanuts. I don't know what these are. Who knows? So we have a national forest in Tuskegee. He goes into the national forest. He kneels. He starts talking to God. He starts talking to the peanuts. And he says the peanuts and the plants start talking back to him. So I just think that's just so interesting because a lot of that, especially for like I went to kind of grew up in the South. Went there when I was 17, came back. So especially like being in the South, a lot of our people can be spooked by things that are not necessarily, if it's not in the Bible, it's not accurate or, it's not real. And I just want to say thanks for bringing that up and for making that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for bringing it up. You sparked me. So I'm thankful to you, Queen. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned Dr. Carver. He's one of my biggest inspirations. As a matter of fact, everything that we're doing with the Navy bean was inspired by his work. The peanut, soybean, sweet potato, just any plant he's ever touched, And I wanted to ask you, when you mentioned ancestors and being able to communicate with them, Dr. Carver being one of our ancestors, how have you seen his legacy being influence? How have you seen his legacy influence the Black community in terms of what we do and how we look at science? If you really think about it, like every time somebody looks at peanut butter, especially a Black person, they'll think about Dr. Carver and everything that he did with that seed. So can you talk about his influence on Black culture, on Black people understanding science, and how important it is for Black people to know how to do science?
Absolutely. So Dr. George Washington Carver, I will say this, has had a huge impact on Black culture, on our community in general with what's going on. Mom just watching. He's had a huge impact in our community and our culture with his inventions, with his brain, with him and his being alone. A little bit of a background on Dr. George Washington Carver. He was adopted as a child by these white people and castrated. If you ever hear him talk, his voice is very high pitched. And people might be like, why is his voice so high? Well, he was treated horribly as a child. I think, to be honest with you, though, a lot of that energy that was maybe trapped and taken away from him as a man was something that he was able to just drill into when it came to science. And I think a lot of our people, if we kind of maybe tap out of things that are fun and right in the moment and tap more into like our ability and what we can do. Just an example, a side note. I think that's an example, one, because he wasn't able to just kind of be free out here and do his thing. He really, really threw himself into his work. So I think just one, being able to stay focused like that. Two, he created over 300 inventions with the peanut alone, and that to me is like, wow. you know, in the early 1900s doing this, you know, during a time where we were just so oppressed, doing this in the middle of Tuskegee, Alabama. That's the country, you know,
Right, right.
and just doing so unapologetically, you know, while talking to God, while talking to nature, while being engulfed in just what the earth has to offer, which is each other, us, Black people, being around our people and being in nature and applying our brain. Two, something that I'm very grateful for. I'm sorry, three. Something that I'm very grateful for is I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with land grant institutions.
Absolutely. I attended one. Yes, ma'am.
What did you attend?
Virginia State,
Awesome.
453 acres of land. Yes, ma'am.
Wow. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, um, for you guys knowing the history of land grant institutions, we back in the day were not part of the original land grants. It wasn't until they had the land grants, I believe, of the 1850s, the 18 either 50s or 60s, and then the 1890s land grants. But what the government did, you know, they looked around, they gave all these institutions money to study. And then they looked back and they said, okay, we got to give our Black institutions money to study because that ain't right. Well, in Alabama, who do you think, which HBCU do you guys think got the land grant institution?
In Alabama, which HBCUs do we think got the land grant?
Uh-huh.
Tuskegee? Well, no, they don't. They're not a land grant, right?
We are, but
Yeah, okay.
originally we weren't given the land grant institution. Originally, it was given to Alabama A&M, agricultural and mechanical, to study the land. But because of the many contributions, such as George Washington Carver teaching Henry Ford how to paint a car so that it doesn't
soybean,
you know, rain, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So because of the many contributions of this one man, the USDA had no choice but to look back and be like, we got to award Tuskegee as a land grant institution. So because of him, you know, my school is still able to continue on with so much and is able to, we're a private university, so we do not get funding from like our state or anything. It really mostly comes from us as students and as alumni. However, Dr. George Washington Carver was able to come and put a historical monument on our campus. There's only 2 universities in the country that are historical landmarks designated, and 1 HBCU, and that's Tuskegee. And that's because of his contributions that he has done. And to be honest with you, I did a presentation last month called Black American Scientists That I Should Know in honor of Black History Month. I went around to several of my schools that I already know my students with, know them there. So, hey, let's just talk about science for a little bit, you know.
Right.
See where they're at, see if they're engaged, if they like it. And I asked them to name people, you know. We did 2 people from the past, 2 people from the current, and 2 people who are in the future, 2 really young people that are really doing well in STEM right now. Like kids. But it was very hard. They couldn't name. I couldn't get names. I think maybe about 7 out of 7 of the schools that I did presentations at, maybe 1 person was able to say Dr. George Washington Carver. And they associated him as the man with the peanut, you know, and I appreciate that because it's like, okay, well, I went to Tuskegee. We love him. That's our guy. And, you know, I appreciate that you guys associate him with the peanut, but why don't more of y'all know about him? You know, and for me, that's where iHeart Biotech comes into play, because it's like, I went directly to school here. I spent a little bit more time at this school than I intended to, but maybe that was for bigger reason than, you know, who knows why. And while I was there, you know, I was learning from and about great things that this scientist did. He also has a week long for you. Oh, yeah, I didn't spot somebody on there. But as long as I was there directly, I should be able to come back to my community and talk about this. And more importantly, the land grant institution for California is right down the street from me, which is UC Davis. Which means that if we look at the area that I'm at, Sacramento used to be called the City of Trees. It's now called Farm to Fork Community of the Capital. Meaning that, Farm to Fork Community of the Nation. Meaning that we in this city can grow food all year round, which is what? Power. Which is power, which is self-sufficiency.
Right.
I really want to connect my people here to look more into agriculture. It's not popular out here in California to farm. That's for Hispanics, quote unquote. And that ain't me saying that, but that's my community. We don't look at that and look at, or maybe we do look at farming and we look at it and we're turned away because of our background with it. Our ancestors forced to be on the land picking stuff that we just didn't want to do at the time. But I feel that Dr. George Washington Carver, I feel that his legacy for those who are in educated spaces is continued on. And for those where Black education is pushed, is continued on. But when you get out too far west, my mom, she used to come do presentations when I was in elementary school every year during Black History Month about Dr. George Washington Carver, bringing peanuts and bringing the peanut butter cookies and stuff like that. So out here, it's really far removed. And we are far west. We're not near them HBCUs. We're not near where we started. So I feel like a lot of it is my job to recruit people from, these schools in the South while we're sending our students to the South, having them come back here once they're done and continue to bring that knowledge back and to just have it kind of go in and out, intertwine. Thank you.
Excellent. Jabril?
Yeah, I just wanted to make mention of something. When it comes to invention, innovation, progress, one of the things or themes we can gather from the work of our dear late brother, Dr. George Washington Carver, is fearless, positive innovation. And one of the things that we run into a lot when it comes to STEM are ethical controversies and issues, whereas though we invent and we innovate, but not necessarily with the best interests of society in mind, but with the best interest of the deepening of our pockets in mind. And I'm not going to say our, because I'm going to disassociate myself from that, because I'm striving hard to not be a part of that cabal, if you will. So what we have to understand is, one thing I heard a sister say, I think she's the CEO of the blackmall.com. She spoke at Mosque Mariam, which is our headquarter mosque in the Nation of Islam, several years ago. And she said something that has stuck with me. She said, our people are not so much disunited, but disconnected. And I think a lot of our people are trying to do great things and work together, not thinking about religion or creed or class or color or background or what have you. But what happens is we don't know one another in large part. And sometimes when the ego gets involved, not only do we not know one another, but we feel like the getting to know of one another will take over what we're doing. And see, what we have to do and grow to understand is, the more we put the success of the collective ahead of the ego of the individual, the more rapidly and more successful we'll be. Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics represent a series of tools that their use is determined by who uses it. A sword is not good, neither evil. But a sword in the hands of a criminal versus a sword in the hands of a soldier trying to fight for his own, his own or his family, that's different. So how will we use these tools? How will we use iHeart Biotech? How will we use biotechnology, bioinformatics in a way that leads to that fearless, positive innovation that positively impacts our community and eventually the world. Because we all know when Black people get up and when Black people move, the world moves. You look at all over the world from a cultural perspective, how we influence everything. Yet those people are able to hop in and hop out of our culture. We can't do that. But what we can do is leverage the best of what we have produced and secure something for ourselves while we live, to be able to deal on equal footing with those who currently have power in their own cultures. So that's all I wanted to say, family.
Man, you hit it right on the nail, bro. And, I wanted to save this question for later, but it ties right into what, it ties right into what we're talking about tonight when it comes to Black people, the influence of science on Black culture. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned dark biotechnology early on in the show. And what a lot of people don't realize, especially in our community, there's a lot of good things that can come from biotechnology, a lot of bad things. Bad things like GMOs, harmful vaccines, the list goes on. But some of the good things like insulin, the development of insulin came from a biotechnological process. Biofuel, biodiesel, using natural products to create energy. These are some good things. So talk about how important it is for Black people to not be afraid or apprehensive about biotechnology and be able to embrace it and use it to better their communities themselves. Because biotechnology, of course, you got to go to school to learn certain things, but there are things about biotechnology you can learn in your home or that you can understand in your home. You can extract your own DNA in your home. That's not a hard thing to do if you notice the right steps, the materials you need and so forth. So that's a good example of biotechnology, being able to hold your DNA in the palm of your hand and it's not in your body. That is the essence of what biotechnology is all about, being able to take living matter and put it somewhere else. So just, go into how important it is for Black people to just being able to understand it, not be intimidated by it or afraid of it, and understanding how important it is for them as a people.
Thank you. That's a wonderful question. Fearless positive innovation. I wrote that down. It is so important. It is so important right now because I don't really know how to explain it other than the ancestors. I talked to my ancestors and I'm connected. The world is changing greatly. It's changing greatly. And as we can see, the final call that you just put up, we're in a revolutionary time period, meaning like things are changing. Things cannot stay the same. And I don't want to say every aspect, but in many aspects, in the way how we live, the way how we out here in California with these fires that happen every summer, just the way how our planet is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. A whole bunch of sewage lines and electrical grids that we have running underneath us daily. This planet's not built for that. And it may be cool for us for another 10, 20 years, hopefully. But what does that look like for our future? What does that look like for if you guys have children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren? What does the planet look like? I mean, seriously, I don't think we take time to think about that. 50 years from now, what was it like 50 years ago? Where are we at? What will it look like in 50 years? And who's going to be running things? Who's going to be in charge? Who's going to be whatever that looks like? Hopefully that's, you taking charge of yourself first. But we're in a revolutionary time period where it's time to create. It's time to use our brains. It's time to apply ourselves. It's time to jump down avenues that we've never jumped down before. Biotechnology, I was scared when I applied for this. And to be honest with y'all, this is all recording, but whatever. I was originally rejected from the program. And I was devastated because I was very confident that I would get in the first time. I'd be doing my thing. I'd be fine. And I was embarrassed. Ego. Okay.
Come on, talk about it. That's
I
right.
was like, I ain't doing, and I was really hurt and confused because I'm like, but my ancestors told me to do this. I heard them. I said, okay, I'm going to follow through. I'm going to do this. And, I applied and got excited and was telling my family and was thinking it was something that was going to happen, and it didn't. And I had about a week of kind of sitting in that and being like, damn, did I make was I overconfident? Did I make the wrong? Am I not qualified? Like, were my ancestors wrong? Who was I talking to? I'm a big manifester. We manifested this. I'm so confused. But I talked to somebody that week who just told me just appeal, just reach out, just see, And so I did that. I reached out to them. I didn't want to because I was like, man, y'all should let me be part of the trip. Reached out to them. They were like, okay, Keyah, write us a letter. I'm like, I don't want to write a letter. I just wrote this whole intro. I just told y'all my whole life on this paper and in a sheet and a half. But I just sent them an email. And by the end of the week, I hadn't sent them, just being transparent, I hadn't sent the paper, and they admitted me. And I believe they admitted me because I had been in touch with a few different people and was just like, hey, I'm not that type of student anymore. Transparent. 2 semesters worth of Fs on my transcript in undergrad from Tuskegee that I paid for. I went through some things where I just I was being molded into the person who I am now. So that's why I love working with students, especially if y'all going to leave California and go to an HBCU. Make sure you stay focused. It's not
right. Right.
You leaving far. Most of the time, people who are coming from California are the first in their family a lot to go to college, let alone an HBCU. And, if you go, make sure you go and you strive and you produce greatness. You don't just go out there and BS it, or go out there and just, get depressed and fall behind or whatever, that you go and you stay focused. And they got somebody like me in their back corner, the people my seniors now who are actually going. I have a student who got a $20,000 scholarship a couple weeks ago. So it was really exciting.
Congratulations.
Studied architectural engineering.
Let's
Alabama
talk about
State.
them engineers. Come on.
Come through.
So he's really excited. He's really excited to get out of Sacramento. We're all excited for him. And for real, it's about that. It's about like moving forward in something that is uncomfortable and new. I went to Tuskegee originally when I was 17, went to a very white high school, did not like it. I know any schools, that was just reflective of California to me, because everybody was like, oh, this is a very diverse school, blah, blah, blah. I said, if this is anything like this is not going to work. I wasn't interested to begin with, but, I got to get out of here. So pushing our students to step outside of the box, because going to Tuskegee at 17 years old from Sacramento, California, was very a huge transition, but it was a wonderful opportunity, for me to meet different people, for me to just kind of be a kid and be a young person and go through life. And I just encourage everybody to enjoy life, enjoy life, enjoy yourself, enjoy, your bodies and these physical, movements that we can do, and, just being free in the sun and the wind and the plants and the water and stuff like that, but also understand that we're in a different time. And somehow I always knew that I was going to live through some things that like my grandparents didn't necessarily live through. The way how they lived through some things that I didn't live through. I didn't have the water hose on my back or see colored and white water fountains and stuff like that. But also we're in a different day and age when it comes to this technology and how it works against us, and how we're so now kind of embedded and connected with it, that it's like, okay, well, how do we get in there and how do we get in there and have a seat at the table and make some decisions and move forward? So iHeart Biotech is my first project. That's my baby I'm cultivating to really just pull more people in But I do not know yet what God ultimately wants me to do with this degree, and hopefully it'll be another project down the line. We'll see.
Okay. Awesome. Well, you definitely have time to figure out, what it is that you're going to really hone in on in biotechnology. And we want to also thank you for overcoming all of your obstacles,
Yes,
because if you hadn't done that, the people who are watching this show wouldn't have gotten a chance to learn about biotechnology from you.
that's right.
So we thank you. We appreciate everything that you're doing and will do. And we're actually a little past an hour on the STEM files. The hour went by pretty quick. But Jabril, just kind of closing things out. Jabril, is there anything you'd like to ask? And we're also going to make some shout outs in the comments real quick as well before we end. But
Yes.
Jabril, is there anything you'd like to ask or add on to what the topic is tonight?
I just want to again thank you. This segment, this installment for me was so authentic. It was a very, very free flowing conversation. And as you spoke, I felt like I was taking some time to walk in your shoes. A lot of times we go on the platform and we go back and forth and we're talking like high level science. We're talking great things. We did that here, but I think we also got to really know you, and you kind of opened yourself up to us, which I think is where we really like our audience to, really tap in, because you're getting not only this accomplished STEM enthusiast, professional, entrepreneur, what have you, but you're getting a glimpse into a real person's life, background, experiences that is a part of your community and is invested in your community, whether it be, them pursuing what you've pursued, or leveraging what you heard, what you've seen, to manifest what you want in your own life. A lot of times we struggle internally, and it takes experiencing and um, learning from someone who's not even going through exactly what we're going through, but is still experiencing that same trial to help us overcome it. So I just want to say your ability and your authenticity tonight was just awesome. And I just took a lot from just hearing you just talk and be free. And the last thing I'll say is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has given us study guides called Self-Improvement, the Basis for Community Development. And study guide 18 is Rising Above Emotion into the Thinking of God. And we're taught that God experiences emotion, but he's master of them. And it goes back to what you talked about your response to being rejected from the program initially, but how you did not allow that to get you spiraling into a very negative or destructive series of habits, but allowed that to be a springboard for where you are today and where you will be going forward. So that's just a testament to why that is so important to do, because, God's always working on us. He's always working on us. And particularly those of us who are engaged in science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Those are the disciplines that formulate the very fabric of our reality and allow us to move forward for limitless progress. So keep doing what you're doing. This platform is always open to you. I've been thoroughly fed. I know Tariq has, and I just can't wait to see what you do.
Right. My words exactly. So is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with? Matter of fact, we're going to do something real quick. Jabril, you ready for that speed round?
It's so crazy. I wasn't sure if you were going to do it. Hold on.
So basically, family, the speed
Hold
round
on.
is okay, good.
No, I got you. Go ahead, bro.
All right, cool. So it's basically a lightning round question and answer kind of thing, where we ask you a bunch of random questions. You got to answer them as fast as you can. If you can't do it within 5 seconds, you got to move on to the next one. That sound good for you?
Yeah.
Okay, and this is just an opportunity to get to know you better outside of biotechnology or whatever we're talking about for the episode. So real quick, we're gonna just ask you a whole bunch, like I said, a whole bunch of questions. Answer them quick. You can't answer, you got to move on. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I got
So,
him. All right, here we go. First thing you do when you wake up.
Look at my phone.
Okay. Hot or cold?
Hot.
Walking or jogging?
Walking.
Professional work or volunteer work?
Volunteer.
Favorite pair of shoes of all time?
Adidas.
iPhone or Android?
iPhone. California.
Oh, my heart.
Fa-
Of course, you're in Silicon
The
Valley.
North Side.
Of course. Why am I surprised?
Favorite song of all time?
Woo! I can't answer that. That's a hard one.
All right, moving on. Youth engagement or raising money for a nonprofit?
Youth engagement.
Worst job you ever had?
Worst job I ever had. Ooh, working at USA Baseball in Apex, North Carolina.
If you were stuck on an island for a year and you could only listen to 3 albums, what would they be?
Album number 1 would probably be Erykah Badu's
Yes.
New America. Other album, it would probably be Kendrick Lamar's the first album that he created, and then the last one, gosh, I know it's over 5 seconds, but Earth, Wind and Fire. I'm not sure which one, but they have like a greatest hits one, and I really love them.
Got you. If you could, I feel like I know the answer to this. If you could meet any scientist from the past, who would it be and why?
Ooh, I definitely would meet Dr. George Washington Carver because I want to continue on what he's doing. Like, how did you invent over 300 inventions with the peanut alone?
Mm-hmm.
Like a peanut alone.
This is the time he spent in the lab. I'd be like, yo, so can I get an internship with you or something? Like, right.
So if you were not an aspiring biotechnologist, what would you be?
Ooh, if I was an aspiring biotechnologist, I would probably be a lobbyist or a politician.
Okay. Last question. Now listen closely. My name is Keyah Brown, and I am
a leader and a Black queen, divine feminine goddess.
Y'all heard it here, family. Y'all heard it here. Black queen, leader, divine feminine goddess, and a beautiful representation of Black is STEM. We are the STEM Files, the voice of STEM talent and Black culture, where we highlight the best and brightest in science, technology, engineering, mathematics. Tariq Cardiac, your brilliant engineer. Follow us at The STEM Files on Instagram and Twitter. Also, quote, The STEM Files on Facebook and YouTube. If you enjoyed, let us know. Make sure to tap in, share. This content will be up very quickly on our YouTube as we continue to build and move forward to give you what's needed to not only grow and do what you want to do of STEM, but what you want to do in life. We are striving to really deliver high-level conversations in our community around those nation-building subjects. Until next time, family, it's been a great time. Peace. And hold on, who's our next guest? Who's our next guest?
Right. I was like, hold on. So our next guest is Danielle Lewis. She's an electric vehicle engineer. She worked for, I cannot remember the company she works for, but she's an electric vehicle engineer. She's been on the show 2 times already. This will be her 3rd time next week. She'll be talking to us about the influence of the gas prices skyrocketing and how it influences electric vehicles. She'll also be talking to us about why the Tesla malfunctions are so important, and just some other things as well. But she's a very talented engineer, very, very philanthropic, excuse me, very philanthropic. She has a organization called HBCU STEM Run, where she uses runs and different types of athletic events to help fund students to go to HBCUs. So Keyah, definitely check that out. For all of those who are watching, definitely check it out next week, March 24th, same time, same place. Jabril, you can go back to what you were saying.
Yes, well, having ruined my own perfect outro, it's only right, but we couldn't get off without giving honor where it's due to our next guest, who is a beautiful colleague of ours. But family, until next time, make sure to tap in, go on our YouTube and go down the list of all the content that we've put out, because we work hard on our platform and all of our guests deliver and give awesome high value content to you. Thank you all the audience members for continuing to tap in with your humble little brothers. And for those who have people they like to see on, demographics they like to see on, disciplines they like to see on, or alternative types of content you like to see us do, please DM us on social media and let us know, and we'll look into how to deliver that as quickly as possible. Until next time, family, Jabrillion Engineer, Tariq Cardiac, Sister Keyah Brown of iHeart Biotech. Love y'all, family. Peace.
Peace.
Thank you, guys.